I had Randy Pobst drive my car on track at COTA. He's getting tossed all over the place because the suspension's throwing him into the air. We tore my GT4 RS all apart, installed basically the Dundon catalog on it. Dundon flew in their pro driver Ted. Dude. Randy's at 88, Ted's at 112. And then he puts slicks on it. He put hand-cooked slicks on his car. Welcome back to It's Track Time. In my last video, I showed how we tore my GT4 RS all apart and installed basically the Dundon catalog on it. So we installed the front splitter, dive planes, a huge rear wing to get the complete aero package. We installed a new exhaust system, including the header back, so everything's been replaced there. We put MCS dampers on it, so we really improved the suspension in that way. And then we also changed some suspension components. We changed things to allow us to get the right camber and the right caster and the right toe on the car. So with all of these changes, now it's time to talk about what does this buy you? How much extra speed do you get on a typical track lap? And today we're going to answer that question. If you remember back in June of this year, I had Randy Pobst drive my car on track at COTA, basically with the stock components and a setup that included getting the camber right and getting the toe right on the car. He's on Hoosier R7s. He took the morning session where it's about 75 degrees. It was a very hot day, but in the morning it was good. And you can see from this video, he's getting tossed all over the place because the suspension's throwing him into the air. And so the dampers weren't very good and the springs were very, very stiff. And so he kept getting tossed into the air and he had to correct all the time. You can see through this video all the corrections he had to make. So our goal was to get that under control, number one, and then get some downforce on top of it to really get the car settled. After all the components were installed on the car and we got everything set up to what Dundon recommended for the initial setup, we then took the car down to the track and Dundon flew in their pro driver Ted. Very fortunate to get him down for this track weekend. He was able to take the car out in the first session Saturday morning and shook it down, made sure everything was working right. From their initial setup, there was only a few minor changes to the suspension settings, and the aero and everything seemed to be working good. So after he gave us the 2 thumbs up, then we sent him out on a set of new Hoosier R7s and had him set a data lap for us. Okay, this is Ted behind the wheel, morning session, 75 degrees roughly. You can see the track is in really good shape. This is right before F1, so they just got through repaving everything, and it was in phenomenal shape. Very few bumps. Best I've seen it in like 10 years. So here he comes around turn 1. He's on a set of new Hoosier R7s. Turn 2 is one, you can see the speed is roughly 100 miles an hour, so you got the downforce, and then he comes into the S's, and the downforce is good. You see he doesn't get thrown as much as Randy did, because the dampers on this car are much better with the MCSs. As he comes through each of these, you can see he's not counter-steering anywhere near as much as Randy was counter-steering. And he has the traction control and stability control turned off as well. Coming up over the top, this is the corner that Randy really didn't like putting his foot down on. You can see the car wasn't thrown around hardly at all with this new setup. So everything seemed really good on this. Ted had never driven COTA before, so we had to take him out for a couple orientation sessions. He drove it on the simulator, but he'd never been actually out on the track. You can see the whole back straight has been repaved as well, so it's really smooth, really nice. We used to get thrown around all over the place. So yeah, we took Ted out for an orientation session the night before, and he basically came out and cracked down this really good lap. I mean, he's not trying to kill himself here. He's trying to be safe with a customer's car, but he can wheel a car around. So you can see now this is the slow bits. We don't have the aero engaged here. This is just the suspension and the dampers and the new suspension components working effectively through the section. And Randy is really fast through this section. He has just an innate feel of how to get through these low-speed turns. Now we're getting into the carousel. The carousel is one place that we really expected the aero to really engage and give us a lot more performance. And then likewise, when you come around this last corner and then you set up for 19, 19 is a very high-speed corner with a lot of risk. And you can see him, he missed that. We told him about straddling that curb, and he missed the curb on this particular lap. And then he sets up for 20. He had to counter there. He comes through 20 and he cracks off a 2:17.23. So that was the fastest lap we'd ever seen. Obviously a very good result for someone that had never driven the track before. And I was really looking forward to comparing that to the lap times that I got with the car. Everything good? You had a good time?
17.2.
Oh, dude. I was like timing you, and I saw one that looked like it was going to crack into the 17s, but I'm not precise. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah, and I screwed up a couple corners on that one too.
So there's even more left.
Yeah, there's a 16 in it. Like today, if I could get my shit together, I could do a 16.
Wow.
Pretty easily. I was on the outside of the sausage at 19 on the fastest lap. So I mean,
so
that's
more there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a couple of tenths easy. I screwed up coming out of 11. I lost a tenth there on my previous best. So theoretical is probably a 17 flat maybe.
Really?
Yeah, and I know there's more there too. So
awesome.
I feel pretty good. Car feels good. I like that change. Front end feels a little more positive. Yeah, I mean, you think a car stuffed it on the
no, really?
in the stadium section.
That's what stopped this?
Yeah, yeah.
So now let's compare Randy's best lap to Ted's best lap. And so you're basically seeing the car in its stock form with Hoosier R7s, and you're seeing the car with all the Dundon components on it. Front straight, 135 for Randy, 137 for Ted. So the first checkpoint, we're saying, okay, well, the downforce that we added didn't cause a lot of extra drag because the car's slightly faster there. Come up around turn 1, and we're really looking for more speed as it come through turn 2 here. So we're expecting that the aero will be engaged at 93, 97. It's not as much as I thought. I thought we'd get a lot more speed out of turn 2. That's launching you now into the S's, and now that's where the downforce is really needed. You need to get this car planted, and they fly into turn 3, and Randy's at 109 and Ted's at 115. So now Ted's able to come in with a lot more speed. The car feels more planted. The downforce is holding him down. Everything's working great. Coming to turn 4, this is where you start braking, and Randy's at 88, Ted's at 112. So he's not braking as much. He feels more comfortable, and he's carrying the speed forward. Randy had to counter steer there. Going into turn 5, 77, 93. Ted's keeping that speed up. The downforce is staying on. So once again, good result there. And then we're going to whip through turns 6, and we're going to get into turn 7 here, which is one of the curb hops that we had to do. And this is where the car gets upset. Randy's at 74, Ted's at 83. So he's keeping his speed. Ted's keeping the speed up. That's keeping the downforce engaged, keeping the aero engaged here. So now we get into the slow piece. Now we're dropping below 80, and this is the V-min. Randy's ahead, 57 to 53. And so now the only thing that's helping here is the dampers and the suspension. The aero's out of the picture. Then this is the corner that Randy really didn't like putting his foot down on, 67, 67. So they're both at the same speed here. Now, it should be a lot smoother coming over the top of this with MCS. And you can see the inputs are much more calm on Ted's car. And then now here we are at turn 10, 106, 106. Everything's the same. Downforce is engaging, but they both have their foot down, so it's not needed. And then we come down into turn 11. And we've got 133, 132, about the same. And so basically they both launched at roughly the same speed, and they kept their foot down the whole time. And so they come through this at the same speed. Then we come through turn 11, slow speed. This is the V-min, 35, 42. So Ted's quite a bit faster than Randy on this. Now Randy was counter steering, and you can see his inputs. He's trying to really turn the car down track. And so Randy stays on track. Ted has to go off track to get the car wheeled around. And now this is the checkpoint to see, does the added aero cause an increase in drag that slows us down on the back straight? So we get up to our top speed on the back straight, 156, 154. Not that bad. For that much downforce, this is, it's over 1,000 pounds of downforce at this point, and we're not really paying much of a penalty for it. Then we get into all the slow bits here. So now we're dropping our speed way down. The aero is doing nothing for you. It's all down to just the dampers and the suspension components. Randy's really good at getting through this slow piece. He can wheel a car through this. So you look at their lines, and their lines are very similar through this. Then you accelerate into the carousel, and you can see Ted is accelerating faster into the carousel. And as we come in, he enters the carousel faster, but when we get to the checkpoint here at turn 17, Randy's faster. So that was kind of a shock. So there's a lot more potential in this car going through the carousel, and we just need to extract that potential out. So now we're going to get to VMAX on the carousel. You're coming around, you straighten the car out now, and he's starting to catch up. It's 114, 113, but Randy's still ahead in speed. Then we launch into 19. Both of these guys were trying to straddle it, but both of them missed. And you can see now 67, 76. So now Ted, the aero's starting to engage. He's feeling the downforce, and he's feeling more comfortable. He had to go way off the track though to get that speed under control. Then here on the short straight, 105, 107. Once again, he's got a little bit of a speed advantage here. And then we drop into turn 20. This is where Randy was having a lot of troubles trying to get the car controlled, where he didn't countersteer and lose time. And you can see Ted was actually the one that countersteered more there. Then when they get down on the front straight here, we got a 218.94 for Randy and a 217.23 for Ted. So he knocked a few seconds off of Randy's top time. So I was real happy with that. It's a good data lap for me to work with now and see how I can try to mimic this and get the most out of the parts that I've put on the car. So now let's compare Randy's stock car lap with all of its bad behaviors against Ted's lap with the modifications and the better behavior. So Randy's in white, Ted is in blue here. And you can see the top one is the speed overlay. You can see where the speed has improved on the car. If you look at the first one, turn 2, there's a speed increase there. We're hoping to get more out of that, but there's a 91 to 96 mile per hour improvement there. Then you can see as he enters into turn 3, you get this massive improvement in speed, and that's carried through all of the S's. And so that's where we're hoping to see the downforce really help, and the added confidence of the suspension to help get over the top of those curbs without throwing the car around. And that's clearly evident in the speed that Ted's able to take the car through the S's. Then you get into that short straight going to turn 11, and he's got some extra speed there. I think over time, we'll be able to extract more speed out of that. And then on the back straight, you can see over that whole period, the car's roughly the same. So that was good, because a lot of people said when you put all that extra drag on the car to create the downforce, you're going to lose your top speed on the back straight. And if you look at the plots on the front and the back straight, it's not really evident that we lost much of anything there. So this is about the same temperature. So it looks good. It looks like the drag is very minimum, and the downforce is huge. And then so the next place we were hoping to get additional speed was going through the carousel and through turn 19. And you can see evidence of that at the beginning of the carousel. Once we got deeper into the carousel, Randy caught up, and he was running well until we got into turn 19, and then Ted accelerated and maintained a lot more speed through turn 19. So I think in the end, we're hoping to get more speed out of turn 2, and we're hoping to carry speed through the entire S's, which is a big piece of the track. We're hoping to be the same on the short straight and the back straight, and we're hoping to be the same through the low speed turn 15 area of the track. And then we're hoping to get more potential out of the carousel and then carry that through turn 19. And that would be the optimal lap for me. It looks like Ted believes that lap would be somewhere in the 16s. So we're going to have to play with this and see if we can get it dialed in and get down into the 16s with this car. At the bottom, if you look at where Ted got his big advantage, you can see on that time slip plot through the S's, he got a massive improvement in performance and lap time through that turn 2 all the way through probably about turn 7. That's where he got most of his time. You can see after that, when we got into the open areas, it was just level. And then when he got into the carousel, he got some performance at the beginning, and then he lost some of it as Randy was going faster through the carousel. And then he picked up a whole bunch going through turn 19. And so that's clearly evident in these plots, and hopefully I'll be able to extract some of this and learn from this. So one of the great things about being out at COTA is you have a huge community of people to pull ideas from. And in my case with the GT4 RS, there's several people out there with GT4 RSs. They're all trying to modify the cars and make changes to it, change the setup, and see what kind of lap time they get, how much it settles the car down, and so forth. So I've been working with Felix for quite a while on this car. He's got one. We've both been trading ideas back and forth, and we were keeping the cars in somewhat similar sync. He was still on the 20-inch wheels. We both did the same kind of setup on the cars. He was on 200 wear tires for quite a while, and he set like a 219, so he put down a really good time for 200 wear tires. I immediately moved on to the R7s and was working off of those. So at this event, we were mainly sitting around talking about the parts we put on my car and trying to get the thing set up. But he made one change. He put 19-inch wheels over the top of the factory brakes, which was a very, very tight fit. And then he put slicks on it. He put hand-cooked slicks on his car. So that was the change he made this weekend. We didn't talk much about it. He was going to go out and try it and see, you know, if everything worked well with the tight clearances that he had on the barrel against the stock brakes. And so he had a little bit of, concern about that. But I didn't hear the report on what he was doing for lap times. And after we were sitting around in the garage for a while, high-fiving and talking about Ted's great lap of 2:17.23, in rolls Felix from his morning session, and he announces he turned a 2:17.04. So he actually beat Ted's lap time. And he did it on a mostly stock car, but with a very good setup. He has a lot of camber in the car, and he's got the toe corrected and everything. But he put slicks on it. And you have to be careful with slicks, because if you read your manual, the added G loads that induces on the car voids your warranty. So Porsche does not want to deal with cars that are running on slicks. They didn't design the suspension to handle that much load, they claim. I mean, if you can run it, obviously a lot of people do run slicks on these cars. And then there's also a lot of questions about the engine. If this is a dry sump engine, so it shouldn't have any troubles with the G loads. But if you're running a wet sump, that you might be able to get into certain situations where the added G loads could screw up the lubrication and possibly do something to the engine. But anyway, if you read their manual, they say don't put slicks on the car. And so I've stayed away from slicks. I haven't gone to the 19-inch wheel because of that. But what Felix showed is you can take a stock car, you can set it up right, and you have to get camber plates and toe links and all that stuff, and then you put the slick on it, which gives you a shitload of grip, and you can go out there and crack down a good lap. Now if you watch his lap, you'll see similar inputs to what you were seeing with Randy. So the load that you're going through to put down a fast lap like that takes a lot of talent. You got to have quick hands, because that car is getting unsettled and you're having to catch it. And so I didn't want to go down that route. I don't want to have to deal with the load that Randy was carrying. And when you hear Randy talk about it, he didn't feel comfortable carrying that load. And he said he was not putting his foot flat down on certain sections of the track because he didn't feel comfortable with the car flying into the air and having to catch it. So my goal was to chill this car out, get it settled. So when the stability control and traction control are turned off, the car is stable, which is what we saw with Ted's lap. Then when you turn it back on for a newbie like me, I can go out there and turn a good lap and not have the car do anything crazy. And then the added downforce is another safety factor to really plant the car. So if you got good hands and you got big balls, you can go out there and crack off a really good lap with this car. Everyone knows this car is extremely fast. It has a great engine in it. But there's a lot of load that you're putting on the driver to achieve that. And so Felix did it again. He turned a really good lap time, shocking to us, but he's in the 17s. He's in the low 17s. He's about ready to crack into a 16 with just a stock car. So there's two paths here. If you've got quick hands and you want to try it, you can definitely put a set of slicks on this car and possibly crack off a good lap time. So I was real curious as to how he pulled this off. So what I did is I took the checkpoints that I've been tracking around here for a while, and I took each of the checkpoints with Randy in blue, Ted in green, and then Felix's car is orange. So I did Felix in orange here. And I put the checkpoint speeds at each of these turns across the x-axis here. And so I was looking for patterns in this. And what's interesting is what I thought would happen happened when you get into turn 3. Well, number one, turn 2, which is one place where the car with the added downforce should be faster. Felix has been driving a GT3 RS for a while, and he knows how much grip he has there. And so he put some real fast speeds around turn 2. And with the slicks, he did the same thing. So you can see that on turn 2, he's faster. And then once you get into turn 3, that advantage starts dissipating. Now you have to start getting into the S's. And then once we get into the S's at turn 4, you can see clearly the added downforce of the car Ted was in gave him an advantage. And he was able to keep that advantage from turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, turn 7. And then at turn 8, you finally drop down to a low enough speed that now mechanical grip is what is crucial. And now the arrow's gone and the slicks are back engaged and they're helping you. And so you can see at turn 8, everything kind of levels out again. Turn 9, Felix has an advantage there. At turn 10, he's got a slight advantage. And then going into turn 11, that short straight, he's got an advantage. And then at turn 11, which is once again a very slow speed turn, everything's equalized again. He's got slicks, so he should have more grip there, more mechanical grip, but the speed is roughly the same. Looks like Ted's a little faster. Randy is slower, but Randy was counter-steering at that point. And if you look at Randy's other laps, he put in the same speed as those. So the cars would all be the same at turn 11 at the slow turn, which is the turn that launches you into the back straight. And so what's interesting here is if you start looking at where he has an advantage, it's actually on the straights. And I was not expecting to see that. So if you go back to the front straight, the first set of bars, you can see Felix clearly has an advantage. And I was looking at, does he have an advantage because he braked late? And so he went deeper into it and got a couple more miles per hour at the last minute. And I looked, and that's not the case. He braked at about the same time as everyone else. He somehow had a higher speed on the front straight the whole time, which was a big advantage. And I'm not sure what the heck was going on there. I don't know if there's some 100-octane fuel going on there, but somehow he was making more power on that front straight and packing more speed. And you could also argue that the downforce that we added on my car caused extra drag and slowed the car down. But Randy's car had the stock configuration, which is equal to Felix's, and he didn't get to that top speed. So the clean car couldn't get to that top speed. So somehow he got a higher top speed there. And then if you go to the back straight, another long section of track, he exited turn 11 about the same speed, but he had a higher top speed on the back straight as well. And that's a much longer piece of track. So that was interesting. Turn 17 on the carousel, he had a little more speed on the carousel. He's got the mechanical grip. And then going at VMAX, he was about the same as everyone else. And then on turn 19, he knows about straddling the sausage there. And so he had a much better line than Randy or Ted. And so he equaled the speed of Ted missing the curb there. And so Ted went to the outside of it. Felix went to the inside of it, straddled it, and had the cleaner line. So he was able to get the same speed as the car with the more downforce. If we get, Randy or Ted programmed to take that line, we would see an advantage, I think, on the green car, on the car with the added downforce. And then at turn 20, another straight, Felix has more speed. So it's interesting. He has more speed on all the straight sections of the track. And then when it gets into the real high speed curvy sections, the added downforce of the Dundon setup gave Ted an advantage. So that was interesting. I didn't expect to see it that way. I knew he would be fast on turn 2 because I've seen him go fast on turn 2. I know he's going to go fast into the carousel at turn 3, and you can see that. And then I figured that Ted would be faster through the S's, and that's true. And so I was trying to figure out where else is he going to make up some time here, and it looks like it was on the straights. So more mysteries. We'll get some more data on this, and there'll be more competition. I know we got 2 more GT4s coming online here pretty quick. I think they're both going to have a similar Dundon setup to my setup. So there's going to be a lot more data on this, and stay tuned. We're going to have more data.